Greetings, everyone. Rev.Hawksblood here. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as I can and get as much as I can in this show today. I'll be doing another show later with TJ Morris on Blog Talk Radio, TJ Morris ET Radio. But this is something that I have to do. I mean, my book is The True Teachings of Jesus from God Realization. I'm going to get into it. So the first thing I want to say to start this call, I myself do not call myself a Christian. I don't believe in the word. I was baptized as a Christian when I was 14. But at that point, I realized there was too many lies for me to follow through with that religion. You know, I was forced through my childhood to stay a part of it. But I had many things going on in my life that made it like really useless to be a part of that. But here's a few things. When I was 14, I went to my minister. I was being baptized. I had the right to ask him 3 questions. The question was, what does God look like? What does it look like in heaven? And what do you do when you're in heaven? Obviously, he couldn't answer any of them. So I said, well, obviously, this isn't the path that I want to follow. I need answers for my life, for my truth. So I started searching, which over my life, I have found my answers. People don't have to accept them. It's just my truth, what I know, what I experienced directly. I don't follow many writings or people's stories or ancient stories, including the Bible. There's small parts of truth in the Bible, very few. Depending on if you're going into the Old Testament or New Testament, the Old Testament to me is useless. All right, because Moses was the greatest black magician to ever walk this planet, and all the stories have nothing to do with a real God. He created an image for God, which is probably not what mankind needed, but obviously he didn't know the true God. He worked with Jehovah. Jehovah is a God, yes, but of the astral plane. He's on the highest part of the astral plane. He's with 3 other deities as well, including Lucifer. So you want to get into that? We will, but I got a lot to get into first. I spent the first 11 years going through religions, and including witchcraft. I was in witchcraft for 4 years as well till I was started around 14. I learned my psychic abilities. I learned all about them. There was only a few that I couldn't use or get into or understand how to use them. But I did learn something, which is really important for me. And obviously, most people might not understand that at any level. There's 32 psychic abilities that you get when you become truly a spiritual being. Whether you can use them or not, depending on where and how you use them is a different story. So people that say they're psychic, they're gifted, and all these words, if they try to use a psychic ability, it really can't be used on this planet. Going to the Akashic records, trying to read somebody else's records is still also wrong. But people say, well, you can go read mine because I can't read them. Well, you're going to get a twisted exception. I'm not going to talk about deities and angels when you work with them, but if you're asking a person to do it, you're going to get a different story of what it really is. All right, I'm not going to be able to go into all those details, but I studied 12 basic religions. I studied with a shaman, a medicine woman for 26 years. I studied with the Raja Master for about 5 years. I studied a religion, which I call very important in my life, which in time I will explain. And I want to get into a couple details, which makes all this important. Why I would say the difference between spirituality and religion and the importance behind them or not. The ideas man has accepted are programmed ideas. All right, religion was created in a really long time ago by the Hindu people. The first religion to be on this planet was based on deities. All right, they're little gods. They work in the inner worlds, but they're not God. But people give anything with power the name God. If an alien comes down and has lightning bolts shooting out of his finger, he's a god. If a person could raise a ship or a car or float it, they're a god. So mankind's acceptance for a false god is very simple-minded, and they do. They accept everything as a god. So it's easy for deities and even demons to be involved with controlling what mankind thinks and how they accept things. All right. I have my path. I was in for a while. I was in it for 20 years. and I was doing two paths. Basically in a path called Eckankar, and I was also studying with a medicine woman at the same time. And in the last part of that, I was with my Vajra master, and I learned a lot about the deities and worked with them. Even though I started working with the deity when I was 6 years old, which I'm not going to go into detail, but I spent almost from the time I was 6 to the time I was 12. And deities don't teach you what you would assume or what you want them to teach you. Like, oh, I need a job, I need a girlfriend, and it has nothing to do with life on planet Earth. But we can accept things because of the programming from our parents, our religions, and the people around us. All right. And I'm a really hardcore person. I debate. I like to debate. I learned how to do that in school for a couple of years. But the problem is most people are not willing to put their self on the line for their truth. I put my life on the line and I'll die with that as well. All right. The government, I try not to attack them because I know they can come after me very easily. But I do go against aliens because they can't hurt me. I can go into the stories about that later on. But for me personally, I live my truth. I walk my path. I don't care what people say, think, or what they think about me. So it's not about pleasing people. When a spiritual person comes into this planet, it's not about what people want. It's about what people should have or need. Whether they accept it or not is the story that I'm going to be talking about today, because most people want to believe this and they want to believe that, but it's not like that. So it's going to be hardcore. So as I move into this, I work with three deities. I call them little gods. I work with two angels and I work with two spirit guides. In the inner worlds, outside of what I did in the physical world, the medicine woman I was with, I spent a lot of time studying with her and learned all the native teachings and things like that. But I don't want to go into teachings because most teachings on planet Earth are just that. Teaching you how to live on planet Earth, which mankind hasn't even learned how to do. All right. I was empathic for a few years, which was really scary in my life because when you see and hear what other people think, it's scary because most people, and like I said, I had it for 2 years, aren't thinking anything important in their brain. Abusive, dangerous, bad, evil. I don't know too many people that walk around thinking about God, angels, and in the spiritual worlds, and put that in their thinking when they're walking the streets or when they're home or whatever. And I always challenge one person a day to make sure I wasn't making up what I was feeling or seeing. I would confront about it. I could be walking down the street and this person said, well, my daughter did, and I turn around and say, what would you do with your daughter? And they freak out. What do you mean? How? And they go crazy. I would do it every day to one person just to make sure I wasn't making up the feelings and the emotions that I was having. I was into witchcraft for many years. I learned a lot about psychic abilities, how to use them. And I realized you can't use them here because it will destroy the reality that we live in. If you're a psychic and you say you could see the future, if you could see 5 seconds into the future, you would change the whole world within a short period of time. So the concept of, well, I'm psychic, I'm this. Yeah, you can be a little bit psychic here and there and things happen, but you're not anywhere close to being a true, full psychic, which means when you go through ascension, you do become that. And we're going to be talking about ascension. Ascension is not ascending. Ascending means you ascend into the astral plane when you die. Ascension means you move into a different place altogether. All right. I learned my past lives. I learned all of them. Back to Atlantis and one past that. So, well, this, that, or the other thing. No, I proved a lot of things I learned, and I watched and see how it relates to other things that are happening, what went down. Out of my lifetimes, I only feel there was 2 important ones, and one was in Atlantis, and one was with Jesus. Now, for me to say, well, blah, 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 I can say whatever I want. You might not listen, or you might not want to listen. You want to believe your truth. If you can't even prove your truth, what good is it? Truth has to be proven to yourself. It doesn't have to be proven to anybody else, because you're going to live and die within that. When I became empathic, I was doing native dancing around the United States. I danced for 30 years. I met with many elders, many medicine people. There's a difference, but basically, the teachings are all the same in all religions. I mean, mankind adds the twisted parts of it that they want. I'm going to say few, like the Muslims, they have their certain things they added to it. The Jewish people, what they added to it. All these, even Christianity, what they added to religion. Now, the Pope's a totally different story, and I'm so against who and what he is. But that's being aware of what he says every day, what he said for the past 10 years, what he's actually doing. The same as Mr. Trump. So we have to fine line where we're going to put our attention, what we're going to do, and what is our goal, and all those kind of things. But if your goal is to get a nice house, have a nice family, and everything else, a nice job that pays all the bills, gives you time to go and travel, that could be your limited viewpoint because you think it's important. Well, I'm going to help the world. Another viewpoint that's useless. Nobody has helped the mankind move forward spiritually in the past 20 years, past 50 years, past 100 years, past 1,000 years. No, none of it has. Muhammad met with Gabriel, and he came out with 36 different statements. They all contradict each other if you read them. So, and he didn't even know who he was talking to the first time. Somebody else told him who he was talking to. Something that I have experienced, because I traveled out of my body for many years. I had 5 death experiences. I can go into all that. But what you'll learn, demons can take on any form they want when you meet with them. Oh, I met with Jesus. How do you know? Because he said he was? I mean, the concepts of all these people working with Gabriel and Michael, really? They have nothing else to do but talk about people and how to get a job, or how to deal with a situation. Mankind doesn't realize in the Bible, there's only 9 angels in the Bible, and they all came and had certain missions that they did. Also, bring in the prophecy of what was going to happen to the planet. They're not here to like make candy cones or whatever. They're here to teach and tell people what's going to happen under certain scenarios. I mean, even Noah, when he was met by an angel, he was told what he had to do. If he didn't do it, well, that was his choice, but he did. So whether people listen to what they're told, and angels don't come here to tell you happy birthday. So all the stories you hear, all the stories about aliens we're going to get into, but what do they do? What do they help us with? Nothing. A belief, a programmed idea, and the ideas that we're doing, sending out unconditional love to the world, really? That's what it is, unconditional. It doesn't mean anything. There's no condition, so it has no conditions to do anything. And mankind thinks that makes them a spiritual person. It doesn't. I mean, out of my 5 death experiences, one of them was a suicide attempt. And I learned so much through that as well, because I destroyed my body. And it was put back together completely. So again, do I know what I'm talking about? I sure do. Whether you believe it or not is your choice. I'm not here to brainwash you or reprogram you. You have to do that yourself. You have to strip all the programmed ideas that are in your mind that tell you this, that, and make you believe these things. I spent most of my life traveling out of my body into the inner worlds. Once you get past the astral plane, you'll learn and understand what spiritual means. Not before that. There's nothing spiritual going on planet Earth. Because every time we think we save one person, we give the orders, or we blow up, or we destroy a whole bunch of people somewhere else. Until it's in balance, it's not going to be a spiritual place, which isn't going to happen. Now, I told you the most important one was being in Atlantis, because I saw how mankind lived without killing, without eating animals. You didn't talk much. We were psychic in a lot of ways, and we didn't communicate verbally most of the time. It was a totally different world until, guess what? 2 alien races came down and decided that they didn't want that, and they destroyed Atlantis. There were 9 races in Atlantis, 5 races, and I call them colored races. Everybody had a color. The 5 colored races left, 4 colored races stayed. Black, red, yellow, and white stayed. Blue, green, the indigo. I mean, there's a lot of the crystal race, and there's also an invisible race. They all left. And those 4 races were taken over by You can say the Anunnaki, the reptilians, the draconians, but they were. What they weren't changed into anything different. They were still human beings. We didn't come from a monkey. People want to believe that. That's their choice. We were humans from other worlds. The black race is not the same as the white race. Their features were always different. And to say that we all came from the black race is another ridiculous belief system. And I'll tell you one simple thing about that, why it's completely wrong. The Hopi people have a strand in their DNA that no other person on the planet has. So they couldn't have came from a black race, if that's what people believe. I don't get into that in detail. But there's truth out there, and there's lies on top of every truth that you can try to find. And more people will teach you the lies rather than anything close to the truth. Now, after being aware of all my past lives, the second one was when I was alive. When Jesus was alive, I was a female in that lifetime. I was friends with Mary Magdalene. She was my closest friend. I'm not going to say who I was, but I was super close to her. I stayed with her two months that Jesus was there before he was killed. And when I say killed, because people that follow Jesus helped kill him. All right. Now, Jesus was teaching his disciples something beyond protection, the concept of what he was teaching. All right. And the other concept of what did he teach? Love? How do you teach love? You can't. Forgiveness, God's the only being that can forgive soul, but it doesn't. It created a system we pay our karma off. Jesus spoke about a lot of things that have not been put in the Bible, and if they were, they were squashed and taken out. But he didn't do writing. He wasn't writing his Bible. It was people around him. Now, when you get into that real fast, Peter, one of his most beloved side disciples, if you want to call it that, supposedly, didn't understand what Jesus was teaching. Thomas did. I mean, a couple of other ones understood it. So when Jesus was killed, they were all ready to leave their whole programming of what they thought they had to do, what they were going to do. Why? Because Jesus is gone. It's over. There's nothing left. They didn't understand what he was teaching. People say, oh, he didn't die. If he didn't die, he would have never been able to even show his truth. Life after death is something that he proved and showed it to mankind. It wasn't here before that. The Aztecs, the Mayans, the Egyptians were totally wrong in everything they did. They were following aliens as a god. So obviously they're not going to learn the truth about a real God. I mean, I can debate anybody on any subject in between that, why the pyramids were built. It wasn't built to make us spiritual. It was for the leaders, and they had trillions of slaves. Everybody was slaves. How many people were the high kingdom? Who had the gold and all that? Aliens came here for gold. Another lie. All these stories that people believe, and Zecharia Sitchin's one of the main people that brought a reality into this world that really didn't need to be here. All right, and he is enforcing and embedding the Anunnaki. One race. There's 36 races here right now. 4 of them are playing with us. The rest can't even be involved with what we're doing because they don't have the power to. All right. I don't know if you care what I'm saying, believe what I'm saying. Again, this is your choice. All right. I can only tell you from my direct experiences, working in the inner worlds, working with deities and stuff, what is really going on. I'll put my life's truth against every lie that's written and carved or even in stone, even in ancient stone. Moses came off the mountain with a tablet with 10 laws. He had 20, but he had 10 when he came off. And then he gives it to his people. But guess what? When he came down, he didn't even follow his 10 laws. He was just given what he called God. If God spoke to you right now and you totally knew or believed it was God, and he says, don't ever smoke again, will you go down and start smoking? If you do, you're a complete fool. Well, Moses was a black magician, one of the highest. He attained multiple powers. He didn't attain all of them, but he attained many of them. So what he did, when he came down, he killed 3,000 people, had them killed. And then his whole thing about running people around in a circle, he didn't know what he was doing because they all died. And it was the children that got to the promised land. And what did they do in the promised land? Kill everybody that was there. Do you consider any of that spiritual? If you do, you must be thinking, I don't know where, because it doesn't pertain to spiritual. Again, people do not know what that word means. But luckily, I was able to stay with Jesus and listen to his teachings. Not what he preached to the people in public, not what he said on the mountain for all these people, what he said to his true disciples. It was about God. It was about God's worlds, realms, the rooms and everything. Not about planet Earth, not about living as long as you can. Jesus wasn't about living longer. He said, give your life and you'll have eternal life. Not hold on to it. He said, if you do, you'll lose it. And he didn't mean you'll die because you're holding on to it. You'll just live here. This is hell. Anybody thinking it's anything different, you never experience the higher realms that God created. This is the only place soul can feel pain, see it, be abused, create the abuse, and all those things. That doesn't happen in a spiritual world, ever. Once you go past the astral plane, they're not there. And when you go past the mental plane, you become totally spiritual. Your reality, what you are is different. And just so you know, you're never going to be a male or female once you pass the third realm. Soul is a light being without gender. So even when the concept of God as a man or a woman is ridiculous, it's the only thing man can perceive because they're not ready to move forward. And you think after 20, 50, 100 lifetimes, you would start catching on. But the word, here's the things that keep mankind from moving forward. And it's called, lust, greed, anger, vanity, and attachment. So when people say, well, I'm this or that, it's based on what you're programmed to believe and what you feel is important. And people don't know what is really important. All right. I just want to say something to people in the chat room. If anybody's in there, I see somebody in there. I didn't go anywhere. What happened? Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So now, these 5 things, I turn them into my own phrases and my own words. I call it smoking, drinking, and drugs, sex, cheap thrills. And that's what keeps mankind going in this world. The word attachment is love and relationships. So we hold on and we think it's so important. But you had multiple lifetimes. Here's something people don't even understand about heaven. The conception of going to heaven and meeting your family. Why would you want to do that? Because you didn't let go of what you were supposed to let go a long time ago. You were here many times, and you had families many times. So why would it be you only want to be with the last wife you had, last husband you had? Or what if you had 3 women in this lifetime? Which one do you think you're going to be with in heaven? People don't want to think truth. They don't want to understand the truth behind their programmed idea of what it is. I've been there. I've done it. I watch people come and go. I watch people stay on the astral plane for years. They come back, and then they lose all awareness and start all over. All right. Now, people say, I can come back as this. I can. No, you can't. Karma will stop you. The concept where you meet, I met a spiritual person, I met somebody from the Bible, and they're going to judge me. You get judged by yourself, not your mentality, but by your karma you create. Whatever you create, you got to come back and pay it off. Even in the Bible, in the Revelations, it tells you what sins can't be forgiven. You should read it. If you're a religious person, there's 2.4 billion people on the planet that are Christians. Read it. The Muslims should read it too. Because if you commit any of them, God won't forgive you. Why do people think God has to forgive you from no matter what you do? Because you pray to him now? Oh, I pray to you, God, forgive me. Really? You killed 10 people. Those families are suffering, and they'll be suffering for generations. And you think I'm going to let you just body die, come into a spiritual realm? People are so programmed by religion. Now, going back to the Hindu religion, go back to those days. The deities that played with them were all into sex. Nothing was other than sex. Even Kama Sutra and all those words about increasing sexual energy. It was never about God. It's man's interpretation of feelings and emotions to create an idea of a God. And God never existed. A real God existed to people up until Jesus came. Buddha was another person that was bringing a teaching, was only the first step in spiritual unfoldment. Because when you take a step in awareness, you perceive things outside of the programmed ideas. Buddha taught about becoming one and going into the bliss state. And that means moving and letting go of everything and becoming one with nothingness. I mean, it's a great feeling for a short period of time. But if you want to give up who and what you are as a soul, which you will always be, that's your choice. When you go into the bliss state, meditation brings you into to this beautiful feeling. You can go into the light and sound. The light and sound is what God sends through all these realms down to here to keep everything alive. You can believe it or not, that's your choice. Now, when people say they see the light, they hear the sound, it is going through them, not the cell phones. I'm not talking about that kind of sound, but it's what keeps life going. Now, the realms, the astral planes, and they have a different vibration. It gets weaker and weaker by the time it comes here. This is the lowest of the vibration that you can experience of God. So when people think they could have sex or kundalini, have it for 10 hours and rise into this higher consciousness, you're only going to feel it through emotions that are in the body. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. But let's add in now, who and what was Jesus? He was not a Jewish follower. Oh, he was a Jewish person. And yeah, I mean, he left when he was young. He left for 18 years. And people have no clue what he really happened. You can hear stories. People write stories. He's not here. I could write whatever I want. But he left. And what happened to him, he went through what is called today ascension. Now, Dorothy Atlantean, when he wrote the Emerald Tablets, talked about ascension. And he explained it. And there's a technique you work with to get into that and do it. I studied with a medicine woman who I studied with for 2 years on that alone. All right. There's a tribe, and I can't say where, how, or what, but they teach the physical exercise you got to do when you're doing your exercise to go through ascension. All right. The first year I had no results at all. But when you do, you're going to end up going through the pyramid into a dimension where you will learn the 32 psychic abilities. All right. Jesus came back and started teaching. Jesus never claimed to be God, no matter what it says in the Bible anywhere. And it's only said, 2 places in the Bible. Jesus said him and his Father are the same. Same, yeah, but not God. He never claimed to be God, and said he never admitted he was. He always said my Father. He never said me. I mean, the one phrase that was put in the Bible, man wrote it. Jesus never wrote anything in the Bible. All right. So let's take that a little bit further. When we're in this life and we create karma, we got to pay that karma off. Jesus spoke about many things. Buddha spoke about karma. Buddha spoke about reincarnation. But it was only from here to there, from there to here. He talks about the bardo, which is hell, in the astral plane. He talks about reincarnating here. He never explained anything further than that. It's the first step. The astral plane is where you go when you die from here. If you get to leave the planet. I mean, if you're really bad, you get stuck here. But that's besides the point. So now people claim karma can be taken away. You can't go to a psychic and they take away your karma. Now, I'm going to say a lot of things about Jesus, and the reason why I'm going to say it, I'm aware pretty much of a lot of things that went down when Jesus was alive, when I was with him. Who he was, what he said. Mankind didn't have shorthand in those days. They didn't have a tape recorder. It's their word. Now, Jesus came from a different point after he went to ascension. So how he was talking was different than the way they did. So if he was mentioning automobiles to his people, what do you think they would think? The same if he mentioned God, what would they think? They're programmed ideas that they had of God already. So the only way he knew people would understand it when he said, my Father. That concept became man, and the concept of God became man. So again, that's all programming by man's writing and twisting of truth. Now, let's take it another way. To think aliens can help us. is the most craziest idea possible. We have sunken so far in our understanding of truth and what actually controls this planet, which is not good. They give all their energy to other things. False teachers, false religions, false masters, while they follow false gods. Do you think we're going to move forward anyway here on this planet? How can we? But here's something that man doesn't want to look at. God created hell for a reason. Not just because he wanted people to beat each other up and rape each other. He created it for a reason. Soul needs to learn. And the only way it can learn is through itself. Nobody can sit down and tell a soul to what he is and how to get there and be that. He has to go through that experience himself. So mankind, the story of no pain, no gain. They don't like pain. So they really never move into the space where it would help them grow a lot faster than trying to learn something here. Go to a football game. What do you go home with? Go to a baseball game. Go to a superhero movie. What do you go home with? False dreams. You fantasize in your dreams of a superhero coming down to save mankind. We created this reality that's so pathetic. And now we got a twisted, sick government. Men are too old to even walk, never mind teach and preach or anything else. Control what we're allowed to do, think, and say. The free speech is another abuse to our lives. We don't have free speech. We never did. The Native people didn't have any free speech ever. So when you talk about free speech and this, that, mankind, a white race that moved into the United States, killed all the Native people. There's 1 million, less than 1 million Native people here, but there was 50 million Native people here 400 years ago. So what do you think? They had a truth of any kind? Kill? In what name? So I say, let's start over. Starting over is the only way we're going to be able to go. But sadly, we got 7.4 billion people on the planet, and they're all not ready to let go. The Muslims have their programmed ideas and their programs. If you're going to accept Muslims coming into the United States, you better read their religions, understand it to the T, what they believe in and allow. Because if you believe that, you're not a Christian, you're not spiritual, you're part of the planet Earth called hell. And people, I'm not going to go into all the details. You need to look for yourself. Now, Moses was given 10 laws. Those 10 laws, if you understand what they are, do not hurt anybody. Do not tear apart their reality, and it only makes them live a good life. So when Moses came down and saw these people doing things, he decided that they should all be killed. All right. On top of that, over the next years, which is a long time, he wrote 603 laws on top of the 10 Commandments. 603. Read them. Go through the Bible. They're all sexual and this. If you see somebody naked and can't eat this, can't eat that, and all these things. Nobody could live by them. Oh, and about like cutting your hands off if you steal, poking your eyes out, all these things. The sad part of that in the New Testament kind of says that Jesus agreed with Moses. He never did. Where did they come up with these? Man's perception. Well, I like Moses, so I like Jesus, so they agree with each other. No, they don't. Never did. Jesus wasn't about killing, ever. He died. He didn't want his disciples to defend him. He could have created an army. He could have taken out the world. But that's not why he came here. That's not what he was trying to teach. When you have 32 psychic abilities, you can do anything. I know that for a fact. I was working with them. And I realized everything that I did had consequences. Every action. When you go against the energy of life, you create an alternate reality. Here, not somewhere else. Like when they did the Montauk Project, came from the Philadelphia experiment. When they did the Philadelphia experiment, they destroyed the planet at that point. They went back and forward in time. They put a rip in the realm between the astral plane and the physical plane, which allowed all these creatures, entities, demons, beings to come into this reality in a bad way. Sergeant 18 and I have been filming all those kind of things for years. in 96 to 90, 2000, 2010, sorry, 2000. Sorry about that. But it's a totally different reality. We screwed up the time frame. We made it so that it's dangerous in its world. And then what happened? Tesla came out of all this, creating technology given to him by aliens, and it will destroy the planet. He even said mankind's not going to know what I give him. But the aliens that gave him the technology knew what would happen with what he gave them. The HARP system is the most deadliest weapon on the planet, and most people don't even know what it is. The doomsday weapon that he was working on, people have no clue. When he invented an earthquake machine in 1900, he almost leveled the square block of New York City, and he had to break his machine and shut it down. So people need to be aware. G5 that's coming out, being put around the planet, will start hurting and killing people. It was designed as a weapon. It wasn't designed as a good thing, ever. So mankind accepts certain things, but when it comes to truth, this is my phrase: people will pay anything for a lie and nothing for the truth. So I'm not asking you to pay me money. I'm telling you to think, act, listen to what I talk about here and there. You might get things to check out. The spiritual part, I'm not even talking about yet. All right, what did Jesus do? Jesus met with Lucifer. Oh, well, that's a story. Well, you want to believe in the Anunnaki, you want to believe in the reptilians and draconians, the Greys. They're just people. Go back to when the Hindus were working with deities, and then they were having sex with the little people, and then the giants came. All those things. There's a lot of twisted there that mankind doesn't want to bring up because it would just screw everything up. And basically, the government systems were created on Christianity. Sorry to tell you that. In the United States, the British came in and controlled all the native people that were alive. They made them learn Christianity. If they didn't, they were killed. When a native child was born, it was taken away at 5, put in a Catholic school until they were 16, and they were forced to start drinking, and they brought them back home. That's how it went down into the 20s. Seriously. You don't hear that ever mentioned. Why? Because the white man destroyed a nation that was a beneficial. They would have destroyed themselves as well in the future because they had too many fires, killed too many animals at a time, all those things. But they were trying to live with nature. I mean, the cavalry came in. When they rode on the trains, they just shot herds of buffalo down for target practice. So mankind was evil. So suddenly we're spiritual? Where's that word fit into this planet, into the United States even? Or we care about people, but there's still people starving, little children everywhere in the United States. We're letting them sell our children into slavery. Where's the protection? I'm not talking about God's protection. And we'll get into that because the concept of what God's protection is, do you have a clue? What is God's protection? To your soul, that it'll keep it going lifetime after lifetime until it starts learning what it is. That's what the protection is, not from getting hit by a car, lightning bolt hitting your house, a meteorite crashing into your house, somebody coming in your house and shooting you. That's not the protection you get from God. People want to believe it is. Oh, your son's born and he dies. Is that protection from God? Concept of what God is delusional. I do many shows on that. Please, I'm going to be doing it constantly. I'm going to be doing a workshop to help people understand their reality, their truth, and what they need to do about that. But again, God created Lucifer, which is the highest archangel. If you're a Christian, do you know what an archangel is? Gabriel and Michael. No, Lucifer. He was given a total mission that no other angel was given. He's not this bad person that's begging God to take him back. Watch the movie Lucifer. It probably explains it in a more simple way, in a more realistic way. Lucifer was put there. And that was his job, is to keep people that are not unfolding here to reincarnate over and over until they learn who and what they are as a soul. Now we got aliens coming here, learning the same thing. And what do you think they do when they die? They're reincarnating into planet Earth. So all these people, well, I was an alien, I was this, I was walking. Yeah, you probably were an alien. But now you're in a physical body. Get used to it. The same as people that were a female in their last lifetime and they're a male in this lifetime. Oh, I'm a female. You probably were. But learning to understand what soul is and why it's in the body is the hardest part of a person on this planet, because sex and all those other things, cheap thrills, keep them satisfied or entertained, and they don't need to move forward. A weightlifter will never put on muscles if he just is satisfied without getting the pain and suffering. The only way you build muscle is by pushing it and pushing it, pushing it. Again, what you have to do is soul. The truth that you have is nothing. I promise you that. You know nothing about a real God. You know nothing about what aliens want, or do, or think. Oh, what they tell you? What they program you to believe? Is that what you are? I write letters to every UFO person out there. I'll debate them live, anywhere, anytime. Their truth is full of it. Full of lies and lies and lies. But sadly, I met Lucifer. He won't come down to here either. God wouldn't come to this planet because it would destroy the planet, its vibration alone. But Lucifer doesn't need to come into hell. He has his demons and his work is down here. And as long as you give into it, well, pull up a thing on Bob Dylan. He said, I sold my soul to Lucifer and everything I did after that turned to gold. Exactly. Is it the desire to leave planet Earth? Of course not. Anything Lucifer would give you would be your desire to stay here. Not to find God. Go to Lucifer and say, teach me and show me God. He wouldn't do that. He can't. So many people doubt Jesus was alive. Well, without Jesus, God would never become into a physical idea of a true reality of something that's real. I mean, even scientists are finally getting to the point, well, there had to be some kind of exceptional energy to create a positive thing to keep unfolding to become more and more solid. But that's here and there. All right. Sorry, I just got a text from third face of the moon. Something landed in Utah mountains. Well, there's a lot of things going on in the UFO world. They're going to be here. People are going to have to accept what's going to happen. But they are not here to help you become spiritual. They're not going to teach you anything about a real God. They don't know. The Venusians, or whatever you want to call those races, those beings that are supposed to be here from Venus, they don't understand God. They don't understand Jesus, and they made stories up about Jesus. So all these races that put down Jesus, saying he's an alien and he's this and that, he was a man. He was a soul who is probably the most enlightened soul that ever walked this planet. Ever! Now, you can say that's this or that or the other thing, but I can go into his details of what he was teaching, which is not in the Bible. Why is that? Realize Jesus was killed. Everybody that followed Jesus was killed. Anybody that did anything, he taught a technique. Anybody that was caught doing that technique was killed. The spiritual techniques that mankind had to do, well, obvious if they were seen, it was just like a witch. If they did anything with a spell, they were demons and they had to be killed or persecuted, whatever. So Jesus' army was killed. Most of them. Now, getting to the critical part of that, before I don't want to go too long on the show, but the critical part of that, when Jesus was crucified, killed, because his people said kill him, who was there? His disciples. They had nobody, and they thought it was over. Mary Magdalene was a disciple of Jesus. Okay. She also married him, had a child. Jesus never saw his child. It was a female. But in the interim, he never saw his child alive when he was in a physical body is what I meant. But Mary Magdalene was Peter's teacher. It's in the Bible. It's in your Bible if you have a Bible. How could that be? How could she be teaching him? Oh, she was this, she was that. She was a goddess of a temple. She wasn't a homeless peasant woman. All those stories were mixed together so nobody could understand or give power to a woman. Up until recently were women given any rights ever. Every not the Hindus, sorry, but the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, all slaughtered women and children. in the name of religion, name of truth, in the name of God. So that's where they were. So how can you believe that we were ever spiritual? Even to think the Mayans were spiritual, they weren't. The Aztecs were spiritual, no, they weren't. The Egyptians were spiritual because they built pyramids. They were ignorant. The people didn't have any knowledge of anything. They were all slaves. How do you think you build a pyramid with all these people and stuff? And where did they all go? Nobody wants to know the truth of what was going on, what races were guiding them and teaching them and working with them, what little gods or aliens that were working with them. Deities didn't help us build pyramids and anything. The certain alien gods did, because if they wanted to communicate with planet Earth. But besides that, we need to go much deeper than that. Because when Jesus was teaching his disciples every day, what do you think he was teaching? Oh, to love somebody, you got to love somebody. Oh, you got to. How do you teach love? You can't. The only way he showed it to his disciples was by his love for Mary. Mary Magdalene, not Mary, his mother. Mary's mother had no powers, no abilities. Mary Magdalene had all the 32 psychic abilities Jesus had. How do you think she could teach the disciples if she didn't have the ability to do it? That's not in the Bible. They won't talk about that. They didn't want to give women any rights. So for 100 years, it came a couple of, whatever they were, priests or whatever, had to write the story about how bad Mary Magdalene was because they didn't want that truth to come out. But follow the story. Most of Jesus' disciples were killed. Mary Magdalene left with her daughter, and she couldn't do much until her daughter got to an age. But she traveled the world. And one other disciple was very into that and became that as well, Thomas. He went to India and started teaching in India. That only came out years ago. The truth's there. But people don't want to change their programmed ideas of what their truth is. When the truth about Mary came out, which was probably, I'm not sure of the date, I don't want to make it up. But when it came out, a lot of the priests and preachers and everybody else said, oh, we got four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We don't need anybody else. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, only 2 of them were disciples. The other 2 were evangelists, meaning they plagiarized Peter and Paul. Paul never being able to see Jesus in the physical as well. So, and that was, see, if you understand it, you have to understand out-of-body experiences as well, which most people probably don't. But you need that experience to understand what soul is. So when people talk about taking shorthand, there was nobody there. I said this before, they don't have recorders. They couldn't copy what Jesus was saying or what anybody was saying. Mary Magdalene had it work with Peter and a couple other disciples and teach them. Paul was the hardest because he didn't want to listen to a woman. There were men in those days. Women had no rights. 0. So when Mary finally got to him and he said, okay, I'm going to listen, he met with Jesus. So the concept of Mary Magdalene versus Mary, the mother of Jesus, are 2 separate entities. The birth of Jesus was not immaculate. The concept of that is delusional. But Jesus had 2 brothers. They became disciples. They became a part of his followers as well. They followed Jesus, but they were all killed later on. And nobody followed the teachings. Nobody knew which way they were going. They were all hiding underground because they would be killed if they were caught outside. So Mary Magdalene got out, and she got to France. She got to other countries. Thomas went to India. And see, the idea of Jesus walked in twins and brothers and all that. Well, when he got to India, they all had beards. They all looked the same. And when you get touched by the light, your eyes change. So when people, I could tell you that Jesus had the most incredible energy. Nobody has ever had it on this planet since he had. And I can tell you, I see auras. I can see into a person and all that. Nobody has that energy. Nobody. But when Thomas got to India, they saw Jesus. That's what names in those days and stuff didn't really matter. They were simple names. So here comes Jesus to another world. When they heard the teachings, oh, that's Jesus. So the teachings of Jesus, unless they actually stood next to him, would he say, I'm Thomas? So again, The truth has been so twisted, and mankind follows these stories, even into the UFO world. I'm sure you know Billy Myers, his story, and sure, they're trying to make believe everything he did was fake. He had some real stuff going on. He met with an alien race and things like that. He made a lot of fake videos and pictures and all that as well. The Pleiadians, he calls them from Pleiadians, but the Pleiades, they are us from the future. They're not from other dimensions and other realms. They're us from the future. So they do care about what we do to this reality. We shot down a plane of theirs, and they said if we ever do it again, they will cause a war with the United States. So people don't want to talk about what's going on. They want to talk about Roswell. We shot 3 planes down. 3 planes. Nobody talks about the other 2. Why is that? I can go into that story, but it's a whole nother story. All right. I got multiple stories that I know are real. I know are true. But here's what I met my first alien at 12. I saw my first UFO come in and abduct my brother at 6. So yeah, you want to get into that? I can. When I was a child till 18, we filmed creatures daily. We went up into Wanacue, and it's like walking into a strange dimension, and everything's different there. It's government property. Now, the idea about that property, Tesla was working with DuPont, and they had an underground city there. During that time frame, they flooded the city on top of the ground during 9 months. And Sargel and I went to every library. We got to talk to a few policemen that were involved and everything else. But 9 months, when they flooded that city, UFOs were going in and out of that city through the ice and everything. They had the army stationed around it. Suddenly, at 9 months, they just left. So that is the most important story that ever happened to this planet, because during Tesla's ideas, what he gave to quote, when the Philadelphia experiment was created, they did something they shouldn't have. And don't think they stopped, because they didn't. Now, there's a lot of books out there. I'm going to suggest 2 books you read. There's more truth in these books than any other book you're going to read out there. Oh, these people said this in ancient times. These people said that. There's no proof of anything, the same as there's no proof of anything beyond, what, the moon? And as scientists came out, an elderly scientist said, everything is just theory when you go out into space. The black hole, the Big Bang. Big Bang. Really? God said, okay, bang, and now everybody's here? No, it wasn't like that either. Now, one book I'm going to suggest, Fred Bell, who was killed after he did a show with Jesse Ventura 2 days later. Well, they said he died. Rays of Light, Crystals of Truth. An incredible book. And then another book, Sands of Time. It's a 3-part book, and there's more truth in there than any other book ever written. And the person that wrote it is in jail right now. Sure, they're not going to let him live after he put out his 3rd book. You need to read it. It explains things beyond any other body that talks about aliens, UFOs, and government. So, Sands of Time, there's 3 parts of it. But again, are you ready for the truth? Do you want it? Or are you going to just pay these people to tell you stories that sound good and hope that someday whatever they said is going to come true? Well, I'm telling you, it will be a sad day in hell if you're going to wait for that. It already is a sad day in hell. So guess what? You're not creating anything positive in your own spiritual growth. So I'm going to kind of cut it short. I have so much to get into, but I don't know how long I actually could stay on YouTube anyway. But please, my name's Hawksblood. My site is www.adventuresintothe.strange.com. But my email address is Hawksblood1. My Skype is Hawksblood11. Please, I'll debate anybody if they want to. If they want the truth, I'll talk to a person as well. People want to talk about lies, feel free. I'll talk to you about them, because that's all they are. I do want to get into consciousness versus existence and death next time. So please, you heard it here. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If not, I hope you take it inside. I mean, Billy Myers was nuts. No, Fred Bell, who I was friends with, who wrote Rays of Light, Crystals of Truth, was actually on their ships as well. He created nuclear reactors, sold them to Japan. He was an incredible person. He did a show with Jesse Ventura talking about some truth, and in 2 days he was found dead in a hotel room. People, yeah, see, people in the world take any truth and beat it up and then put it out there. Everything you hear about UFOs, everything you hear about aliens is only a small percentage of the truth. All right. So I'm sorry, you can believe something's true and something's a lie, but I'm going to tell you 90% of everything you hear is a lie pertaining to death, reincarnation, God, spirit, Lucifer, angels. Please, there's millions of people talking about working with angels. And what do they get? Oh, and I can't even say what's going on. I have a friend that's thrown out of a house in a hotel room, and she claims to work with an angel. People that claim this don't get any help from angels. They're not here to help us that way. So be willing to learn, understand the truth. I'll get into the techniques and workshops and all that. Like I said, if you even get anything out of this, know that what you have is not even close to the truth. And whatever whistleblowers coming out, exposing truth. Now, there was a whistleblower just came out that worked at the base and said he's going to tell the truth about everything that happened. And they even said, sorry, UFO people, never said anything about one alien. All right. So, and I could tell you that that's a lie even in itself. He couldn't say anything for 30, 40 years. Now he's coming out and putting more lies out there. Because I can tell you directly, there's ships that landed there. I'm not going to go into all those details. That's another time. But please look for the truth. Don't follow the lies. And look at reality, and you know everything you hear is a lie because we're not moving forward in any way. Nothing we invent, create is helping mankind move forward spiritually. In fact, it's destroying our food, our air, our water, and our bodies. So with that, hope you got something out of today. Hope you appreciate it. If not, I'm sorry. I do the best I can. My life's on the line now. I put my truth out there against any of the lies of any people. The Pope, the Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, even Oprah claims a lot of things right now. So please, I'll talk about anything, including gay rights and gay all that and all the concepts of diseases that mankind's creating. So it's all there, but the truth behind it's not. Peace, love, compassion, whatever you need in your life, hope you get it. Hope you're finding what you're looking for. All right, till next time.